In this app development module, we'll be talking about parameters and filters. We'll first talk about what are parameters, why they're used within the context of dashboards. We'll then get into the general usage with this specific syntax. And then we'll jump into a live demo where we'll walk through several use cases. As you know, visuals are inherently tied to data sets. And that within a single dashboard canvas, you can actually have visuals that come from multiple data sets. Now, this setup generally causes some inherent complexity. And it has a lot to do with data sets and their scope. Now, if you haven't watched our previous video, which talks about setting up filters, click interaction, and sort of what is the notion of dataset scope, please make sure to go watch the video. You really need to know that as a prerequisite before jumping and following some of the exercises here. Now, that being said, one of the key things that ties visuals that come from the same dataset is the notion of scope. So it's very easy to start creating interactions between visuals that come from the same data set. You can have click behavior, you can actually have filter widgets at the very top that come from the same data set, and just naturally everything will work. Everything will interact, filtering will happen without any issues. But the moment you start adding other visuals from other data sets, the notions of data set scope actually starts to break down, and it's actually difficult to allow interaction between them. So as an example, aliasing columns tends to actually cause some complexity. So if you have aliased columns, data set scope won't necessarily work, even though you have visuals coming from the same data set. Sometimes users want to be able to dynamically update titles based on selections that they're making. Sometimes there's filters that might be coming from the same data set, but you just want to have more control. Maybe there's some custom expressions you want to apply to the selection or the particular filter selection. And for whatever reason, you just can't do it based off of what just happens implicitly through the data set scope capabilities. So let's jump into exactly what parameters allow you to do. And I think the best and the simplest analogy that helps a lot of users to understand parameters is the concept of global variables. So think of parameters within the context of your dashboard as global variables. They exist within the entire canvas of your dashboard, and it's accessible by every object in that dashboard. Okay? So as an example here, you have a dashboard, several visuals, and then you have parameters which have certain key value combinations. So there's a channel which has AMC as its value. There's a state which has CA as its value, and then you have DS, another parameter which has some sort of date value. And what's really powerful is these parameters, they can be set by any visual. And actually, it's not just visuals that can set them. It's basically any filter widgets, click behavior. You can actually pass them in through URLs, and they can come from custom styles. Actually, JavaScript extensions, they can set these parameters using our Arcadia APIs. Let's talk a little bit about how you can use them within dashboards and the syntax that goes with it. So anytime you're looking at a dashboard, you always see this funnel at the top right. That top right funnel will display all the parameters that are currently available to any object on that dashboard. Okay, and so here again you'll see this nice little hover over dialog box that appears, and you'll see, date string, parameter, channel parameter, and a program parameter. And these, again, could have come from a combination of click behavior, filter widgets, URL parameters, and custom styles extensions. And really what you really, at the end of the day, want to do is actually use these parameters. This is the syntax that you use within the Arcadia UI. Basically, it's a double angle bracket with, it's mandatory to have the parameter name. And then if it's optional, to actually have the colon and some default value. There are instances where you might want to do this. We'll get into some of that and during the demo. And fundamentally, what ends up happening within Arcadia is that anytime you have these angle bracket notations used, the Arcadia system will actually go in and completely replace everything that's within and including the angle brackets. So a search is done within the context of the dashboard. It searches for any parameter with the name that matches exactly what's in the angle brackets, obviously before the colon. And if there is a match, then that entire expression gets replaced. What's really nice is that these values that come from these parameters can be almost anything. They can be function names, they can be column names, they can be literal values, and they can be applied to any visual shelf, including the titles and subtitles of the visuals themselves. Okay? So again, it's a very powerful feature, and let's jump into some example usage of this. Here's a simple dashboard. Okay, we have a couple of filter widgets at the top. We have a pie chart, a heat map, and at the bottom some, a stacked area chart. First thing I want to show is that when you hover over this funnel, which is what we were talking about, it shows the current parameters that are set. And already you might be able to deduce where this is coming from. It's actually coming from this filter widget. So the order date string filter widget or date picker is actually setting the start and end dates. Okay? And just to see what happens as we make selections, let's say on this filter widget, notice what happens. Obviously, all our visuals that come because due to dataset scope are getting filtered, and you'll notice that ship mode is now added as a new parameter. This is exactly how all these parameters work, is that they continuously sort of get appended and update in sort of this global way. Let's sort of show another example. Let's say I set up click behavior. Let's say I enable filter on click, and then I, again, in develop mode, I'm sort of testing things. Again, these two visuals get updated based on the selection because it's dataset scope. And notice what happens. In the funnel, you'll see order priority is also set now. Let's walk through actually using some of the syntax that we walk through. So here, one thing I like to do when developing or as sort of a feedback to the user who's at the end consuming the report is to tell them what values have been selected. So right then, if you notice when I tested the click behavior, it's not obvious to the user what exactly was clicked on if they happen to scroll a little bit. So what we'll do is we want to actually use the syntax that we just showed to now set the sort of in the subtitle the value of what is being selected. So now as I'm making selections in the pie chart, notice now I have an indicator of what was my selection. Again, pretty nice and powerful concept. The other thing, sometimes you want to do, and this is actually where some of the complexity comes in. Let's say I have a calendar heat map like this, and I have some sales data, and here's the sales date. And at the bottom, I have a trend line, but the trend line is actually, it's a little bit more complicated. There's basically, based on the week of the year, these are all the weeks in the year, I'm plotting the sales by region. What I really want to do is that when I make a selection on the date here, I actually make this line or this area chart only show me for that particular week, or for the almost the entire week of sales for all these different regions. So if I go in here and I I've already enabled click behavior and I sort of test it, notice what ends up happening. So sales date gets set, so it's 2009 06/19. Nothing obviously gets updated yet, but let's see how we can actually use our sort of parameters to set this. So here's my order date string. And what we're trying to actually do is, let's say I want to take the week of year, okay, of order date string, and I want to actually take, again, the week of year, but what of the parameter that we're actually choosing from is sales date, okay? And because sales date doesn't come in as a string, we'll put single quotes around it. And now we'll update, and there we go. So as I'm making selections, that specific week of the year is getting updated. This is honestly, this would not be possible in any other way other than if you use parameters. Parameters gives you this flexibility of really creating expressions very custom to the logic of the sort of the business rules that you're trying to apply. Let me give another example, and this is a really interesting one, and actually tends to be really powerful in the sense that you can create template visuals, and what that means is I can, for example, I have a pie chart, and notice that the pie chart is based off of order priority. But let's say I want to give the user the flexibility to dynamically change whether they view the pie chart based on order priority, or let's say something else, like here we have a bunch of other dimensions, let's say by region. Not really possible any other way, but we're going to leverage something called a custom filter. And the custom filter, we're going to say this is a dimension. I'm going to say in the title, choose a dimension. The output parameter, we're going to call it dim. The values, you actually can just start entering a bunch of values that you want the users to select. So it turns out that the value is what gets sent as the parameter, and the label is what appears in the dropdown. So let's say I want order priority, and then this is let's say for simplicity we'll just call that, and then the other one we called it region, and we'll make this region as well. Okay, and we have a couple options, and we'll permit only one item to be selected in this case. And now we have this selector. Nothing is getting updated. All that's getting updated is our dimension here, which is region. Notice that we're now setting this based on, and so if I hover over it, notice how it changes to order priority. Let's see how we can actually use dimension now inside our visual to make it templated. So instead of order priority, what we're going to do inside here is we're going to replace it with dim. Okay, very simple but powerful. Let's see what happens. So I'll go and close this out. Obviously, priority is the current selection, and then now let's choose region. And there we have it. You have now created almost like a templated visual where based on the user selection, you're dynamically updating what the visual shows. Okay? And I'll show one last example of how parameters can be set, and we'll do it using a custom extension. We have a custom extension. Again, this is a lot more advanced, but this custom extension actually sets a global variable that's the user's logged in name. So in this case, the user that I'm logged in at is admin. And now that we've added this custom style and we hover over the funnel, notice that there's something new added. It's called user. And the value for it is admin. So what that means, again, I can go to any chart. So let's say, this particular visual, and I can add in user as a parameter syntax, and notice that it gets updated. I hope you found this app development module helpful in demonstrating some of the more advanced use cases using parameters within Arcadia. Thank you.